This morning, we are continuing our journey through the Sermon on the Mount. And if you guys have been with us in this journey, you know that it has not been an easy one. It has been a lot of conviction. It's been a lot of looking within ourselves and saying, I might not be quite as aligned with these Beatitudes as I thought I was. And if you know what's coming, if you gathered from the songs that we're singing or the big words behind you that talk about mercy, you know that the Beatitude that we're talking about today is the one revolving around mercy. And this is Matthew 5:7. It says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." And if you've been with us and you've felt all of this conviction, all of these feelings of uprootedness, you might look at this and say, this is going to be easy breezy, right? We show mercy, we get mercy, and that's it. We just wrap it up. We can call John back up here, call it all good, right? Not exactly. It's a little more complicated than that. But today we're going to be looking at really three facets of mercy. We're going to be looking at the three W's. So we're looking at what mercy is, who we need to show mercy towards, and why we need to show mercy. But we're also going to add in a fourth W, just a little W at the beginning before we go into any of that, which is where is mercy? And the reason why we're asking that is because sometimes as Christians, or just people in general, look at the Old Testament and the New Testament, and we kind of think that God looks different, right? I've heard oftentimes people say, well, God in the Old Testament, he is really all about justice, and he's very legalistic, and sometimes even is described as cold or firm. And then we look at God in the New Testament, and we say, oh, well, here's Jesus, and he's so kind and gentle and merciful. But I want us to see that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he's the same God in the Old Testament as we see all the way into the New Testament as well. And so this idea that Jesus is talking about with mercy, this isn't this new concept that he's introducing. It's a concept that we have seen throughout the Bible. So we've actually seen it. We have two graphs here. It looks a little scary, but it's not that bad. Okay. So the first graph to the left, we see this word mercy, and it's showing where it is throughout the Bible. So we see it all the way to the top. We see it up in Genesis, and it flows all the way down into the New Testament. And then this smaller graph up to the right actually shows the word mercy and breaks it down where it is throughout the Bible. So we can see that this word mercy is not this new idea that's being introduced to Jesus, but it is throughout the Bible. Okay, so now that we know where mercy is, it's everywhere throughout the Bible, right? We want to look at what mercy is. And I am a person who loves definitions. I'm a writer, so we love the dictionary, I love definitions. And so I wanted to go to the dictionary to find out what it says about mercy, and then we can see if it aligns with the biblical definition and all that. So, this is what the Merriam-Webster says about mercy. It defines mercy as compassion or forbearance shown especially to an offender or to one subject to one's power. But is this really the full concept of mercy? Is it just compassion? Well, it's a little more complicated than that as well, because what we see in God is a little deeper than just having compassion unto us, right? And when I think about mercy, this other word also pops into my mind, and that's grace. And before really studying mercy and grace, I kind of thought about those ideas as like interchangeable, or that they were very similar, but they're actually very different. So we first know that these two are different words in the first place is because of Paul when he writes to Timothy. So in 1 Timothy, he he says, "To Timothy, my true son in the faith, grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and Christ Jesus our Lord." So we see here that he is separating the words grace and mercy. So we know now, because of Paul, that they are two different things, right? So what are they? What's the difference between them? So we have a lovely theologian, Martin Lloyd-Jones, who describes them as this: grace looks down upon sin as a whole, and mercy looks especially on the miserable consequences of sin. And I read this, and it kind of made sense, but it also didn't really register for me. I was like, okay, this makes sense, but what really is the difference between grace and mercy? Because they still I'm hearing sin, they kind of still sound similar. So I went a little further, okay? And the reason why we're going so deep into understanding what mercy is and the difference between grace and mercy is because if this beatitude is saying, the only thing it's saying is that we need to show mercy, we really need to have an understanding of what mercy is so that we know what it is we need to show. So we go a little further. And we're doing something that John would just love. He loves looking at the Greek translations of words, okay? If you have been in church, you have heard him bring up a Greek translation of a word. And I'm doing it too, so let's buckle up. Okay, so I looked into the actual Greek original translations of these words, right? And mercy, commonly the original word that was used is Elios, which also means pity. Grace, the common word used for grace is charis, which also usually means favor. So whereas I was thinking grace and mercy sound kind of similar, pity and favor sound very different. We can also think of it as mercy is withholding deserved punishment. Grace is undeserved favor. It's an undeserved gift, right? And really, to make sure that we really understand this concept, let's think about it in more of a tangible way. So I don't have any kids, but I do have two nieces. And every year we do Christmas cookie baking. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know about you guys, but when my family, we've done traditions, usually something goes wrong every year. Just a little something, usually something happens. But there was this one particular year when my oldest niece was much younger, and she got really upset over something. Who knows why? She got so upset, and so she ran, she yelled, she got upset, and she ran into her room and closed the door and locked herself in. Why did she lock herself in her room? Because she knew that she had done something wrong. She knew that she had acted out, she got really angry, she got upset, so she ran away to hide. So my sister could have done one of two things. She could go to her and she could say, here's your punishment, you're going to go in a timeout, or whatever the case may be. But she did something different. She went to my niece, and my niece is crying, she's begging for mercy, right? And so my sister withholds punishment. That's mercy. And then my sister goes one step further and invites my niece back into baking with us. She's giving her this undeserved gift. That's grace. So we have mercy, withholding deserved punishment, and grace, giving an undeserved gift. And God does both, right? And these things are really like two sides of the same coin. And we see God doing this throughout the Bible, but we especially see it, a great example is in the life of David. And we read some of the Psalms earlier today, so we're going to look at another one right now. So I invite you to turn to Psalm 51. It's also up on the screen. David, if we know the story of David, we know that he was a really great man who did many wonderful things. And he wrote so many amazing songs, right? But we also know that David, like the rest of us, was a person who sinned. and he sinned bad. And he, if we know, he lusted after another woman, he had someone get murdered. Not really great things, especially not great things for an anointed king, right? And so here is David in Psalm 51, and he is saying to God, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. According to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions. Wash away all of my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me." So here is David. He is begging God for mercy. I know I've been there. I'm sure all of us have been there begging God for mercy when we have sinned. And David isn't coming forward saying, "I didn't do anything wrong." He is acknowledging. He says in verse 3, "I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me." You see, mercy, we know that we deserve punishment when we're asking for mercy. But David is coming to him saying, "Please give me mercy." And God does. God gives him mercy because David could have been punished. He could have been taken off of his throne completely. But God kept him there. And then God went one step further and showed him grace and said that your son is still going to build my temple. He's showing mercy. He's withholding that deserved punishment after David greatly sinned. And then he's showing him grace, this gift unto David that his family is still going to be able to be blessed, right? So now that we know what mercy is, we want to look at who does mercy apply to? Who are we supposed to show mercy to? Because in the Beatitude, it's not specific. It just says, "Blessed are those who show mercy." However, we can see that in the life of Jesus that he showed mercy to everyone, especially the people who wronged him. He still showed mercy. And this is a really hard concept to grasp. Because just like John talked about last week when we thought about meekness, and we were talking about being last, and that we really need to put ourselves down on the totem pole, it's easy to do that for people that we love. It's a lot harder to do that for the people who have wronged us, the people who have hurt us. But those are the exact people that we have to show mercy to, right? And that's hard. To give an example, I'm not someone who has a lot of road rage, okay? I'm not like a lay on the horn, roll down the window, like yell at people kind of person. And I know that some people are, but I'm like an internal road rager, so I'll like be in the car and the windows will be up and I won't be honking, but I will yell at the people. They just can't hear me. And I will get angry, when they cut me off or they stay too long in a light, but I'm just yelling, by myself so that I'm not like actually making them angry, but I'm still angry. And in doing that, in my own way, I am giving them the punishment that I think they deserve. And I've also had times where people have offended me, right? And in that, I have corrected them, and I've gotten angry at them. So I'm giving them the punishment that I think they deserve. And I've also had times where people have hurt me, like really hurt me. And so I get angry, and I get upset, or I get defensive, or I walk away, or I ignore them. And all of these things, I'm giving them the punishment that I think they deserve. Is anyone with me? Has anyone else done this? But at the same time, I have also been a person who's been at the light too long. I've been the person who's cut someone off in traffic. I've been the person who's offended someone. I've been the person who's hurt someone deeply. And when I'm the one doing those things, I'm not asking for punishment. I'm begging for mercy. I have been both the person giving punishment and for the very same thing, asking for mercy. And we're not the only people who have done this. This is a struggle that has been present even in the time of Jesus. And a great example of this is in John 8. And this, if you don't know this painting, it's a great painting by Rembrandt. It's beautiful. And it is showing this adulterous woman. And if you don't know the story of the adulterous woman, it's basically this woman is brought out into this crowd and everyone is ready to stone her because she committed adultery. And Jesus comes out and he says, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." You see, everyone in the room, or everyone in the crowd, wanted to punish her. And Jesus is coming in and saying, show her mercy. Why? Because you all are sinners too. But it's really easy to get that line conflated, right? Because we know that there should be a line, right? A boundary. In our personal relationships, we don't want people to walk all over us. But oftentimes, we really move the line toward our favor. And I've seen this in my life, I've seen this in the church, in the world, is that it's really easy to say, I am going to show justice, punishment, toward others, but I'm going to beg for mercy for myself. Right? I'm going to be the God of justice with other people and hold them accountable and show them that they are not supposed to be acting this way. I'm going to correct them and teach them, which we should do. But oftentimes we're quick to do that and not quite as quick to show mercy. And it's hard. It's hard to show mercy. But if we're honest with ourselves, we don't want God's wrath. That's scary. We don't want that. We're begging Him for mercy. So if we are willing to ask Him for mercy, we have to be willing to give mercy to other people too. So we've thought about what mercy is. We've thought about who mercy is for. It's for everyone. Especially for the people that we don't want to give it to. And maybe for you, the person or the people that you don't want to give it to are those strangers on the road that you get angry at, right? Or maybe it's the people closest to you because those relationships are complicated and they're deep and there's a lot of wounds or roots in those, and you don't want to be so quick to show mercy to them. But those are the exact people that we need to be showing mercy to. So we've looked at what mercy is, who mercy is for. Now we're going to look at why we need to show mercy. And there's two reasons that we really need to be showing mercy. One of them has to do with this lovely thing. This is called Hammurabi's Code. It was made in 1750 BC. This is far before the time of Jesus. This guy is one of the first examples that we have in history of a law leading the people in a moral way. So we have the Bible, but people who weren't following the Bible, we have this example. It's one of our first examples in history. And it's old, guys. It's from 1750 BC. But recognize that phrase right there? Mm-hmm. That's in that code. An eye for an eye. And why do all of us here recognize that now, something that came from 1750 BC? Because we are a society that really likes this idea of punishment. We're a society that looks at this concept and says, yes, that sounds right. Because it feels right. If someone hurts me, I want to hurt them. An eye for an eye, pain for a pain, offense for an offense, a honk for a honk. This is the concept that we as society have become really comfortable with. And sometimes as Christians, we even look at this and say, well, that's justice. We say, God is a God of justice, so shouldn't we be showing that as well? But instead we lean into this too heavily. We lean into this idea of justice, but it actually is just this punishment to make us feel better. Because that's what this is. An eye for an eye, it's not to teach the other person, it's to make us feel better. It's to make us think, well, now you're suffering like I'm suffering, but in the end, really, we're both just suffering. So why does this matter? Because this is showing how we don't want to be. And when we introduce this concept of mercy to a society that's thinking like this, it's radical. So why mercy? This is one of the reasons why we want to show mercy. Because in a society that says justice, 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 punishment, 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 get even, we're saying, I don't need to get even. I need to show mercy to people. You cut me off on the road, okay. You hurt me, I forgive you. You offended me, I've done it too. We're introducing this idea that society doesn't know what to do with, and that's exactly what we need to be doing, right? As Christians, we want to show the world this example of God and who He is. And He is a God of justice. There will be justice, right? But He is also, just as much as He is perfect justice, He is perfect mercy. And that is who society needs to see, because we are not showing that to each other. We are riddled with this idea of getting even for our own benefit to make ourselves feel better. So this is one of the reasons why mercy. Why does mercy matter? And there's also another reason. And it's really tied to this quote, which is really powerful, by another theologian. It says, "Nothing moves us to forgive like the sense of wonder that we ourselves have been forgiven. Nothing proves more clearly that we have been forgiven than our own readiness to forgive. To forgive and to be forgiven, to show mercy and to receive mercy, these belong inextricably together. To forgive and to be forgiven, to show mercy and to receive mercy, these belong together. Because there is no greater way that we can feel closer to God than to start living like God. When we get to know Him in a different way, we're getting to know Him not just by His Word, but by living out the way that He's calling us to live. We're seeing just a glimpse of the mercy that He shows us, of the forgiveness that He shows us. When we show mercy onto others, it's just a taste of the mercy that He shows us. And the fact that it isn't easy for us, the fact that sometimes it doesn't even feel right, it feels like, well, they deserve to be punished, that gives us just a taste of God sacrificing everything to give us mercy. Because he is a just God, but he also has looked upon our sin and said, I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to forgive you. I welcome you in. I show you mercy. I give you grace. It is a gift. And the greatest example that we have of this is Jesus. We see this man, fully God. We see him. And he gets up on that cross and he dies, and that is him showing us mercy. Because he is up there and he is saying, you deserve this. You deserve to die. You deserve to suffer. Because we have sinned and we have failed and we have fallen short. But he says, I'm going to take it all for you. That's the God that we serve. That's the God that we're following. And if we're not acting like that, if we're not acting like people who are showing mercy, like he showed mercy to us, then it's exactly what it's saying in this quote. Nothing proves more clearly that we have been forgiven than our own readiness to forgive. Nothing proves more clearly that we have been shown mercy than our ability to show mercy.
That's right.
And this is directly tied with what we talked about last week with meekness, right? We need to position ourselves in a place of meekness, of saying, slap me, okay, slap me twice. Of saying, you're going to hurt me, I'll take it. Because that's what Jesus did. That's exactly what he did. And so in meekness, we're saying that meekness is this attitude, and then mercy is the action, right? Meekness is the attitude, mercy is the action. We're saying here, to whoever has offended us, to whoever has hurt us, we're saying, I am going to show you mercy because God has shown me mercy. And so really what that comes to is this question. Am I a person who shows mercy?